Are you looking for inspiration on a daily basis? Then check out Deal to Heal Tees. With our inspirational tees, you're sure to find something to inspire you. That's dealtohealtees.com. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealtees.com. Again, that's dealtohealtees.com. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you enjoy the Girl Dad Discussion podcast. I'm your host, Ernest James, and I believe the relationship between a daughter and her father is one of the most important relationships a young lady can have. And therefore, my mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by sharing the voices of girl dads to the world. So check out our podcast on every platform where podcasts can be listened to. And if you want to watch the podcast, check us out on our YouTube channel. Again, that's the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with your host, Ernest James. Welcome to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. All right. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I'm your host, Ernest James, and I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. If you haven't already, make sure that you guys subscribe to our new YouTube channel, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. We used to be a singular podcast channel, but now we've turned into a podcasting network, and where we have 4 podcasts that's now running on our podcasting network. So make sure you guys check that out. Again, that's the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. And also make sure you check out our partner podcast, the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with E. James, on our YouTube channel and on all of your podcast listening platforms. Definitely make sure that you guys check that out. That's one of my sort of my baby, right? The main one that I love talking about outside of this podcast, talking about fatherhood and our daughters and the relationship that fathers have with our daughters. So make sure that you guys check out the partner podcast, the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. Also, just in case you guys ever thought about starting your own podcast, you guys can go to the ebooks by ejames.com. Again, that's ebooks by ejames.com, and get your copy of the Start Your Podcast Now ebook. Right. So I wrote the ebook because people kept asking me how to start a podcast. And so I started a podcast because I had started a podcast. So I just wrote the ebook, and now I actually turned it into a workshop where I'm going into high schools and elementary schools and teaching them how to start their own podcast. But in case you're not in high school or elementary school, you can just go buy your copy of the ebooks, Start Your Podcast Now ebook, in order to get your copy, right? In order to get your copy of the ebook. Also, our product of the week, as you guys know, we are a self-sustained podcast, and the way that we stay on the air, one of the ways that we stay on the air is by bringing you guys amazing products for you to purchase in order to help us to pay our bills. So our product of the week is our purpose journals, as well as our purpose planners, because I believe we should journal in order to keep track of where we've been in our lives and where we are currently, while at the same time planning for the future. So our purpose journal and our purpose planner can be purchased off Amazon. The links are in the description below, so make sure you guys go down and check that out in order to get that information, right? So now today we're going to jump right in it, because today, just like any other day, we are blessed with the guest, Mr. King. How you doing?
How you doing, Ernest?
I
I'm
am
honored
good.
to be on the show, man.
Hey. First of all, let me say thank you for being on. Because you could have been doing anything else with anyone else, but I appreciate you being on. And so we just gonna jump right in it, man. Do me a favor, introduce yourself to my audience and tell us who you are and a little bit about what you do.
Oh, well, my name is Syeed King, and I'm from Philadelphia. I'm a by trade, I'm an educator,
Mhm.
and I devote my life to besides my family, right?
Right, right.
Besides besides the good Lord, besides my family, um, one of the other major things that I contribute my life to is the youth of Philadelphia. And so I'm an educator, educator by trade. Particularly, I've been called to work with youth who been cast to the side and where generally society has gave up on them. So I work in an alternative setting, particularly in a juvenile detention. And so trying to bring light to darkness,
Mm,
and that give me an opportunity to uh, do what else my other trade, which is speaking, consulting, and in training, and bringing that out to other entities where youth are and leaders that work with youth.
mm.
So I really enjoy it.
Okay, cool. So we definitely gonna get into that and unpack that a little bit more. And you mentioned about your family, and since of course I mentioned earlier about the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. So are you a girl dad?
I am a girl dad.
All
Uh,
right, all right.
two
So
girls.
two girls.
Yeah, two.
Okay, cool. So first question: what are your daughters' names?
Yeah. So I have my daughter's name is Jade and Sarah.
Jade and Sarah. Okay, so before I started the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, it actually started as a segment of this podcast. So whenever I would have a girl dad on, I would ask them two questions, and so I'm gonna start by asking you them same two questions.
Hit me.
First question is, what does it mean to you to be a girl dad?
Oh man, I'm taking care for the rest of my life, man. My girls are they're they're devoted. Oh man, I'm truly blessed. I'm truly blessed to have the girls that I have. They take care of me. They treat me like I'm. They literally treat me like I'm a king. Every birthday, I can't plan anything because what they want to do is priority.
Right.
And and I'm honored to be in that position. I'm truly blessed that I have two darlings that really care about really care about their old man.
Right. So my second question is, what is something that your daughters have taught you?
That's a loaded one. So
Hmm.
I'm gonna go to my first daughter, Jade. When Jade was first born, we were tied to the hip, right? Every time I would leave the house, she would cry. Every time I would come home, she would meet me right at the door. Right. At that time, we lived in we owned the duplex and we lived upstairs while we rented out the bottom. So when I would come in the door, I would have to walk up the steps. And because she was a toddler, we had a gate at the steps,
Hmm.
and the gate had this plastic window on it that you could bang on, and she would bang like, daddy, daddy, daddy. She'd be so excited, and this would happen day after day after day. And this one particular day, I came in, and the Spirit of the Lord hit me and said, "That's how I want you to be with me." So I'm like, "Whoa, that doesn't happen often." that you that you get that you hear that internal voice.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen often. And so as time went on, again, I said she was tied at my hip. We're sitting around, we're watching television, and she's like, have her leg on me. And I look, and my wife looked, and I move over a little bit, and she moved over a little bit to put her leg. And this was consistently happening. Again, the spirit hit me again. That's how I want you to be with me. Of course, I was humbled, and it has strengthened my relationship with God.
I like that. I like that. I think that's the first answer that I've had of that magnitude. You know what I mean? So usually, the fathers talk about different natural things that their daughter has taught them, patience and things of that nature. But definitely, that's a new take and definitely a blessing to strengthen that spiritual foundation. To
Mhm.
have that example from your daughter to for that. So that's yeah, I like that. I like that. So we're gonna jump into this interview, man, and really get into who you are and a little bit more about yourself. So, of course, I'm listening to you, speaking about the different number one being an educator, but also the different avenues in which you use to reach out to the youth and to be a blessing to the youth. So I know that there's always a story before the story, right? And there's always a reason why we do what we do.
Okay.
So in your story, who was Syeed before, and what was kind of the thing that made you, or that experience that you had that then made you say, you know what, now that I've kind of made it through this or overcame this thing, now I'm going to spend my life helping these other kids, you know what I mean? To help make sure that they have someone that's reaching out to them, that's opening doors for them, and even taking out time with the other leadership, to make sure they're getting the correct leadership that they need. So who were you before you started doing the work that you do, and what was that incident that made you say, "All right, we're about to start this movement"?
Oh man. Yeah, that's well, let's unpack. That's a lot. So, one,
We
as
got
a
time, man. We got time.
young person, as a young person growing up, I was a fighter. I was a fighter. I was a kid. I was angry. Um, just trying to find my lane. Um, in some cases, I was confused. So I would get caught up with the wrong people. But I was fortunate to had a mom that stayed on me, and some other people in the community that helped breathe life into me, like
Mhm.
spoke things into my life and just exposed me. That's the key. Exposed. They exposed me to various opportunities. Um, family and friends. Like I was just explaining to somebody the other day, I was truly blessed. A cousin of mine who she just recently passed last week. She served on city council, named Donna Ree Miller. She served on city council for Philadelphia, but I was blessed to, again, again, I'm saying this because the key word is exposure.
Mhm.
I was blessed to be in the room when she was talking to, they called a family meeting, and I was like one of a few kids that was actually there, and her mentor was the state rep, and he was like our Malcolm, our Martin of the Philadelphia area, and he was like basically asking her like, "Hey, what do you want to do? We talked about you going running for city council, and this would be great for you." And she said, "I accept." And the whole family rallied around her and told how they would be supportive, helping her, even when she's not home. It's all that.
Hmm.
The key is exposure. I saw that, and when she was in office for maybe I think maybe about 4 or 5 terms, but I watched her at work. Not only did I watch her, but the people that she attracted, I was able to meet. And some of those people was able to um, open up doors for me. They took me down to the Million Man March, the first Million Man March they had down in Washington D.C. So these are things that I was exposed to that was luring me away from the fighting. I won't say it was a gang, but it was gang related activity that I was
Hmm.
getting involved in,
Right.
fighting people in other territories and things like that. And so that was the beginning of the transformation of me evolving into being coachable to eventually go to college and things like that. So I met a mentor in high school, my ninth grade teacher, still a mentor to me today, Dr. George Cross. He wrote the book, The Secret to Male Leadership, Black Male Leadership in America. Um, he called it cool posing, but he settled me down and helped me put things in perspective. And he said, now, hey, I'm supposed to be at football practice. I would, I would stay after school to talk with him and be late for football practice. That's how much of an influence he was having on me. And he told me, he said, you know what, I can see you as the next Ahmad Rashad. I
Mm.
said, wow, he saw that in me. So I said, okay, all right, I'm going to go in the field of communication. That's what I want to go to college for, communication. I want to be a sports commentator. And so that's what I was shooting for. And the reason why I tell that story is because I believe you have to shoot for something
Hmm.
to get to a destination. But if you don't, like I saw the shirt you had motivation and you had to highlight it, the M, the O, the V, the E. If you
Hmm.
don't move, you're not going to go anywhere. You're not going to accomplish anything
Yep.
because you're not activating anything. You're just sitting there stagnant. But you have to activate the energy to be able to attract the right people around you. And so I went for it, and I said I'm going to go be a sports broadcaster. I went to college for it, and while I was doing that, I was being exposed to, again, exposure keep on coming up, right? I was being exposed to various opportunities within the communication field. And so I ended up fall in love with psychology and sociology. And in that, and learning about how people, well, one, learning about myself
Hmm.
and finding out, discovering what made me go down the wrong lane initially. What made me do that? And I was able to see how my environment was having an impact on me. And so I started thinking like, all right, there's some people I left behind. There's some people just like me in my city, in my neighborhood, in my community that need to know what I know and what I'm learning. So I took a shift, and I was like, I really enjoy. I had a radio show. I really enjoyed it. I helped produce Friday Night Football for an NBC affiliate. I enjoyed it, but I felt fulfilled when I was helping young people. Ernest, I believe that everybody will meet themselves in the future,
Mhm.
right? Life start with you, but it does not end with you. It's going to touch somebody else. Now you'll get to witness it, but whatever you birth into this world is going to be hand over to somebody else.
Yeah.
Somebody else is going to possess it and take that ball. Remember that Super Bowl commercial a couple years ago, with a little boy? He had the ball, and they all fighting for the ball, and the ball is like everybody's going for the ball, and one person get the ball, he throw the ball to another person, and just keep going on and on. Eventually, the boy run into the stadium, and the game come on. But I think of life is like that. We bring we birth ideas into this world,
Mhm.
and other people are impacted from it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. One of the things, one of the words that you emphasized on is exposure, right? And I know that for a fact to be so important, and especially in the lives of our children, because a lot of them don't have the exposure, because even some of the parents haven't even been exposed to different. As we were talking before we started recording, I was telling you that I'm from Chicago, and we had started a church. We started a church a couple of years ago. Me and the senior pastor in Gary, Indiana, which is only like maybe 30 minutes, across the state line from Chicago.
Mhm.
And even some of the people that we met, having conversations with them, and just in conversation asking about the exposure, like how far have you been outside of the city? And most of them had never even been no more than maybe like 5 minutes across the state line. Now, Gary, Indiana is only maybe about 30, 40 minutes from the state line between Illinois and Indiana. And it's probably only 45 minutes drive from Chicago, and it's like, well, we pretty much ain't never been no more than like 5 minutes just across the state line, and then when I asked about going to downtown Chicago, you go downtown and see the buildings, and used to be Sears Tower, now it's Willis Tower, and the stadiums and all of those things, and they like, nah, we ain't never did that.
Mhm.
And what was crazy, when we were having this conversation, and what I've come to find out, there was a metro station literally, and it's still there, but literally right there, that you can get on this train for like $6, and it takes you straight downtown to
Wow.
all of that's there. You know what I mean? So even with the opportunity of exposure is there sometimes, but then sometimes it takes even exposure to even open up your mind to say, you know what, let me get on this train and see where it goes. You know
Right.
what I mean? It's like, I've heard about Chicago. I know it's right there. And especially if you're on the lakefront in Gary, you can see downtown Chicago.
Wow.
It's right across the water. You know
Wow.
what I mean? But yeah, because of not having that exposure, to the parents, you know what I mean, the parents not being exposed, to the children not being exposed, that you have generations of families and communities that never go outside of that city limits. And it's not just in Gary. I oftentimes talk about Chicago. Speaking of Chicago, the west side of Chicago in some cases is the same way. Like, you have people that live on the west side of Chicago that never leaves the west side. I'm talking about generations of families that never leave that community. And so that exposure definitely is so important to to get to all of us as a community, but definitely for our children, because our children will be the ones that reach out, that stretch out, to stretch the families out, and to stretch their mindsets to know what's really possible, how far you can go physically. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
that's just like going downtown Chicago. That's a physical move, but also how far you can go mentally with the things that you learn, and as far as you can go. So definitely that exposure piece is very important. And speaking of exposure, you know, your exposure and the things that you learned led you to start your own movement, the flow movement. So could you tell us a little bit about even how that started? You know what I mean? And the purpose behind what you want to do with that movement.
Yeah. So what happened was during the pre-pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
I I would see I saw the trend come in where you had the graphic tees and they all have different sayings and some I would not endorse.
Mm-hmm.
Right, it doesn't line up with my values. However, I was like, well, what if I created a t-shirt line that motivated people, that inspired people? And so I was like, well, I want to create walking conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And I came up with a motto, um, wear what you say and say what you wear. And and I told my wife, I said, so it never materialized. But when the pandemic hit, I was mentioning it to my wife again, and she said, you keep on talking about it. Why don't you just do it? I said, done, done. I'm gonna do it. And I went, attended different webinars and went on YouTube University and learned how to create these T-shirts. And I started, and I said, I'm going to call it For Love of Wisdom, which stands on Proverbs 4:7, right? I mean, it's telling you, in the beginning is wisdom, get understanding. Though it's going to cost you everything,
Mm-hmm.
get understanding. And so that's what it's going to be, for love of wisdom. And it's to the initially it was like ushering people in the direction of wisdom. I don't care what you believe in, but commit to wisdom. And I was doing that, and then as we were speaking earlier, I had an encounter with extreme execution and went through the training and certification to be a coach. And I said, now there's an opportunity to bring some more substance to For Love or Wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And so the mission changed. Well, let me say it expanded.
Yeah.
So now it's about inspiring and motivating um, leaders, educational leaders, or leaders that work with youth, and drive them to have an impactful change on the next generation by dedicating themselves to personal and professional development.
Yeah.
Again, which is, if you dedicate your life to personal and professional development, you're seeking wisdom. You realize you don't know it all. There's more to learn. And so that's what flow is all about. That's what we do for Love of Wisdom. And it has afforded me the opportunity to go into schools, go into different nonprofit, corporate entities, and train their people on learning about themselves. One, I try to take an inside out approach. As I was saying when I was sharing my story, you know, when I was going through my educational journey,
Mm-hmm.
taking those psychology and sociology classes, it was helping me understand me even more and understanding. why I was doing certain things in my developmental stages. And so, in my trainings, I help bring some of those things up, bring those things to the surface. And so they can understand these things will have an impact on whatever mission you're on at your job, your professional or your personal mission, whatever relationships you have. It's imperative that you understand you have that emotional intelligence so you can stop yourself ahead of time.
Yeah. Yeah, man, and you mentioned about the flight assessment, and for those who don't know, the flight assessment is a version of the DISC assessment. For everybody don't necessarily know what that is, but I would suggest that everybody, definitely all my listeners, that you guys look into that to see what that is, because I actually took it. About 3 years ago when I took it the first time, because I've taken it twice, I think now. But about 3 years ago, I took it the first time. And basically, what it is, it's an access. And if I'm explaining it wrong, definitely correct me. But it's a personality assessment that allows you to find out and really dig deep into who you are as a person, and it opens up parts of yourself that most of us never know, never come to the conclusions of who we are as an individual. And it definitely helps to give you more substance of who you are and more vision of where you're going, because now you can identify where you're going by who you are. You know what I mean? And I definitely I recommend it for all of my listeners, but definitely if you have some students that's I like the high school age. I think that if we can get it into the hands of high school kids to get them to take it, that it definitely help them when they step out to the real world, to give them more direction. So to anybody, I definitely would recommend once again that you guys take that flight assessment. And so you can even look up Mr. King. I'm sure we'll get his information. So maybe you guys can connect with him in order to take part in that. So before we get out of here, one of the other things we were talking about before we started recording was another movement that you are also involved in. Actually, two things, because I really want to. I forgot about it, but I wanted to bring it up because I seen something on Instagram. I seen something on Instagram when you were getting an award or a promotion of some sorts, and I actually was you running for when you running for office. Actually, was you running for office, because I can see, I didn't really know what I was going on, but I could tell it was like an official, what I mean, an official room, as far as like of government. And so, give us a little bit about what's going on with your new position or promotion.
Yeah. So, yeah, recently, I was appointed to be a commissioner for Black male engagement for the city of Philadelphia. Our mayor, who is the first woman and Black woman mayor that we have had in the city of Philadelphia, and so she has set up these different focus groups,
Mm,
and one of the focus groups is Black male engagement. And so I was one of 30 men that she um, identified that would be very instrumental in helping her and the city council understand what's needed for our Black males in the city.
mm,
And so we will be actively meeting on a monthly basis and collecting data on particular things in the communities throughout the city that will be instrumental in helping them make the right decisions when it comes to our Black males.
that's it. That's it. Well, congratulations on that.
Thank
Congratulations on that. And that kind of leads into the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about, which is another movement that you are a part of, and I think you are spearheading. Whether uh, I just kind of let you explain it, but it's the daddyhood movement, right? We talked a little bit about it beforehand, but if you can explain that to our listeners, just a little bit more about that and what that movement is about.
Yeah. So no, let me take you from the beginning if you don't mind.
No problem.
Um, I grew up. And when I was telling my story, you notice I never even said anything about a dad or a father. My father wasn't in my life. Um, I didn't get a relationship with my father until I became an adult,
Hmm.
and we were at peace when he transitioned. Before he transitioned, we were at peace. Um, I I forgave him, and from there, it made me reflect on what our young back to our young people, what they go through on a daily basis, and how, and with me being a dad, how important the role is. And I never forget, I was my daughter, she had her friends over and they were playing a Nintendo Wii, and I happened to come downstairs and I was playing with them, and the one girl was like, "Oh man, I wish I had a dad like yours." And while that's a compliment, it hurt.
Hmm.
It hurt, um, because I remember I remember that feeling. I remember not knowing where my dad was, where my father was. I remember that. And you see that I caught myself. I corrected myself, dad and father, because it's a difference between a dad and a father. A dad has a connection. You don't call man, every father is not called dad.
Hmm.
I know I never called my father dad ever. Why? He didn't earn that. He missed that. He missed that moment of being called daddy or dad.
Hmm.
Missed it. So um, I just talked to him directly, first person. I didn't call him anything because we didn't develop that relationship. With dad comes relationship and connection. And so I started the daddyhood movement to help fathers transition into daddyhood. We just celebrated Father's Day, and I always put the disclaimer out. If you look at my videos, you'll see. I'll say I'm not the perfect dad. I have a lot to work on.
Yeah.
However, I'm not going anywhere, and I'm committed. And when you have a day like Father's Day, and every man, they have a child, Happy Father's Day, some of them don't deserve that. Let's be honest.
Hmm.
Now, do they want to be in position to be able to be honored? I do believe that, but they don't know how. And so through the daddyhood movement, I'm creating a community of men who are dads, and not just biological dads, spiritual dads as well.
Hmm.
If if you are a man and you married into a family and those aren't your biological children, however, you are in the position of being a dad and you demonstrate the characteristics of a dad, oh, I salute you. You a dad. You a dad. Because anybody could be a father.
Right.
Anybody could do that. And so, um, we these fathers, they need a way to be able to come into the daddyhood realm. And the daddyhood movement is to encourage that.
Yeah, I love that, man. For several reasons, right? So I am a stepdad, right? My daughter is my only biological child, but I have four stepsons, right? And I really don't. I only say stepsons in this uh,
I got you.
um, community. You know what I mean? Just to make the difference, for what we're saying. But in my relationship with them, I don't even say stepsons. I call them my sons.
Right.
So I have four sons, and so that's I know the how important it is for a father or a dad to show up, right? And that was one of the things that I always told. They are adults now, but that was one thing I always told them because their dad, or should I say, their father was around. Always was around. Was in distance. You know what I mean? Like 30 minutes away. At any given time, and yet he wasn't always present. And so what I would always tell them, like, I'm not here to take his place, but until he gets here, I'm going to stand here. You know what I mean? And I was that, father figure to them, while he was absent. You know what I'm saying? And I when you mentioned about the incident with your daughter's friend, I remember a similar incident when I was growing up. My upbringing was quite different than yours because I was raised with my dad, right? My mom and dad, two-parent household. But a lot of my friends and family weren't, And so growing up in Chicago, and I think it's probably the same thing anywhere else. When you got the homies and you guys hanging out, you start, cracking jokes on each other and things of that nature. They try to hit you where it hurts. You know what I mean? And so again, like, none of us is perfect, right? And neither was my dad. And so, when we would have these little bouts, our friends would always, crack jokes on my dad and stuff, And it's one day, one of our friends was talking to my brother. Him and my brother was kind of going back and forth, and he went on this long tangent, just going in on my dad and making fun of everything, that he can think of about my dad. But my brother didn't say anything, and so he was just going for a while, and then finally he stopped, and my brother just looked at him. He said, "You know what's funny? You can tell me everything about my dad, but I can't tell you nothing about yours."
Mm,
And in that moment, of course, being teenagers, we were young, it was funny. But I never forgot that. And it was like that same moment, like you, was like, yeah, it's funny, but I know it hurts. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know that I'm blessed to be in this position where I get to see my dad every single day. You know what I mean? I get to wake up with him. I get to go to sleep with him. You know what I mean? And I know that there are my friends and family that don't have that same relationship, don't have that same opportunity, and that definitely played a part. And even the work that I do, even as an adult, as a speaker, to go to schools and even recently joining a mentoring group, to mentor young boys and young men, you know what I'm saying? So that always played a part, even in my upbringing, just the fact that I was blessed to have my dad, that I was able to see the difference in my life and even the difference in some of my friends and family, some of the things that they did or didn't get to do because their father wasn't present. You know
right.
what I mean? And so I definitely um, support you in that movement, to transitioning these young men into being able to really become dads and earn the right to be called dad. So I definitely appreciate that, man. Man, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, man. We've been talking for a while, but I really appreciate you being on, man. I really appreciate you, sharing your story and the work that you do. I want you to have the last word. I want you to have the last word. I want you to leave us with a word of inspiration, motivation, maybe some for the fathers, however you feel, and definitely share your uh, social media handles and things like that with us. So I'll give you a couple seconds to think about that. While you're thinking about it, to my listeners, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Make sure that you guys are checking us out at our on our websites, right? So we got the Deal to Heal not Deal to Heal, the dealhealfulfill.org, which is our main website, which gives you all the information about myself in order to have me to come out to be a speaker at one of your events or to facilitate a workshop or something like that. Make sure you guys go there to find out more information about me and having me come out, or just more information about the movement as a whole with the Deal to Heal movement. Again, that's the dealhealfulfill.org is that website. Also, make sure that you guys check us out at ebooksbyejames.com. Again, that's ebooksbyejames.com, which is the website where I have all of my ebooks, including the Core Four, which is the Core Four values that every daughter should get from her father, which is what I use to build the Girl Dad Discussions podcast around. We actually talk about those four core values that every daughter should get from her father. But if you go there, you can get the Core Four. You also can get the males from males to men ebook, as well as Forgiving Me, which is the 4 steps to self forgiveness. All of those ebooks is there, including the Start Your Podcast Now ebook is also there. So if you guys go there, you guys can have a chance to check that out and check out the ebooks by E. James. Also, last but not least, but one more thing, make sure you guys also checking us out at our inspirational t-shirt line, which is the deal to heal tees.com. That's deal the number 2 heal tees.com, which is including our inspirational t-shirts as well as our podcast merch, which is our podcast t-shirts with our podcast logo on it. You can get one with the Deal to Heal with E. James logo on it, or the Girl Dad Discussions logo. But also make sure you go check that out to get a chance to see our other t-shirts that we have, our other inspirational shirts. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tee and be inspired all day. That is our tagline. So you guys can go there and check that out. Last but not least, I have been blessed to be a part of an organization called the Forgiveness Mission. And what we do, we have free virtual workshops. Used to be every quarter of the year. We actually just changed it. So now we do it every other month. We have a free virtual workshop talking about everything concerning forgiveness. Who is it for? What does it mean to forgive? What is the benefits of forgiveness? How it affects ourselves, how it affects our neighbors, our bodies, our world, everything around forgiveness. I think it's a very important message. Is a very important thing for us to consider. And so I was blessed to be a part of this for the last year and a half or so. I think almost 2 years since I've been involved with it. So make sure you guys go to check that out. You can go to forgivenessmission.com in order to register for the next workshop, or you can go to Eventbrite and register for the Forgiveness Mission forgiveness workshop that's held by the Forgiveness Mission. So whenever you're listening to this, either one just passed or one is coming up. So just make sure you go to forgivenessmission.com or go to Eventbrite to register for the forgiveness workshop. All right. So make sure you guys check that out. So, Mr. King, first of all, again, let me say thank you again for being on. Thank you for taking out your time to share your story and share your expertise with us. I want you to have the last word. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, hey, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure to share this platform with you, and I see you doing some valuable work, and I could continue to do it. Continue to do it. Especially, you're speaking my language. You're speaking my language. You're empowering people on multifacets. From your books to your merge to here the podcast, and you tapping into um, the head of the household, the fathers, right?
Mhm.
That's important. When you take away the father, you take the father out of the home, it's not the same.
Yeah.
Not the same. So, yeah. My last words of and as we depart, I will say, simple as I'll just leave it on my T-shirt, right? I was created to change the world. I truly believe that I was created to change the world. As I spoke earlier about, you know, us having ideas and birthing them and bringing them into the world so someone can benefit from it. I
Mhm.
truly believe we all have been called to do that. It's just a matter of us spending some time with ourselves, doing some soul searching, and allowing ourselves to be attracted to the mentors and the people of influence that we need to get to the next level. Right. So um, understand this. Anybody who's watching, believe it, and take the words that I just said and say it to yourself. I was created to change the world. And as you say that to yourself, understand this. Together, we are the solution. If we all saying I was created to change the world, as we are pursuing our goals and walking in the light that we're supposed to, walking the path that was designed for us, and we synergize, can be get in sync and be and stand together and lock arms, we'll understand that we together we are the solution. So one, starting with yourself, understanding you was created to change the world. And as you understand and know who you are and know where you belong and what path you're supposed to walk down, you can't do it by yourself. You have to do it with others. And together, as we lock arms and we come in sync, we become the solution. So I was created to change the world.
All right, all
Yeah,
right. You
you
want
are.
to look at your social media handles so we can
Yes.
find you?
www.forloveofwisdom.com. And that will connect you with my social media platforms on Instagram at forloveofwisdom.com. If you want to find me on YouTube, For Love of Wisdom 2020. And just as we were just speaking about a couple minutes ago, the Daddyhood movement, if you go on Instagram, look at the Daddyhood movement.
All right, all right. We can't end it no better than that. To my listeners, thank you guys for tuning in one more time to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, where our mission is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, excuse me, heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Until next time, you guys be blessed. Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.